Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today. My name is Schey, and welcome to Habitat Now. We have been doing these live online visitations and exhibitions and presentations since May of 2020, and as long as people continue joining, we'll keep exploring the world and visiting the artists and the exhibitions and the experiences we know and love. So today I have a wonderful little Habatat-Zoom for you. Alexis Silk is joining us all the way from Italy. Just kidding. She's in the States. She's hanging out here, traveling around, has exhibitions planned. And just to let you know, like we talked before the presentation, and her work is incredibly in demand. Where she lives now in Italy, it's hard to keep works on the shelf. So a lot of the pieces that we emailed and sent you earlier have all been sold, but commissions are available, and she's honored to work with our Habitat family in the futures, but I'll get into that in a little bit. But first, I want to share my screen to go through a little bit of housekeeping of the many events coming up. As many of you know, as we get closer and closer to the big week in Detroit of June. So this was me at the Imagine Museum, hat on. As many of you saw on social media, my hat was just destroyed. They dropped a wall on it when taking down, so I'm in need of a new hat. So I'm working on that. I promise I'll get you one. I'll get one. So these Zooms are live, and obviously those who don't catch it live can watch it on YouTube. Please share, like, subscribe, all that stuff. And as we continue sharing the world we love, we continue doing not NGG shows for Not Grandma's Glass. Focuses on artists that aren't in Grandma's art collection yet. We have some amazing talent lined up. I think next is going to be in April. I think it's going to be the second week in April because we have a special presentation the first week. Make sure you have a chance to stop by the gallery. We're doing an in-person exhibition for Mark Laputa. It is a long time coming. He's an amazingly talented artist working with blown and carved glass. Definitely a part of the future. If you haven't seen his stuff in person, it will knock your socks off. Back to Leah Wingfield and Stephen Clements. We're going to be doing a long-term promotion for them towards the end of the month as they release a new body of work. More details on that, but it's going to be cool. A Peter Horror exhibition planned for April. More details on that soon. And now we're getting into the Glass 51 celebration here in June. We have our RSVP up on habitat.com for the VIP event. You can get tickets for the opening day of Friday, June 9th online right now. We have so many new things planned. That first ever artist gala we're having on Wednesday. If you don't go to GAS, you can come and get a personalized tour. We're doing our own kind of docent tours with Bird, myself, and Corey walking around the gallery. Parties, events, we're doing the party this year. We moved it to Corey's house, which is going to be great because we haven't done Corey's house in, I don't know, maybe 5 years for the party there. It's an amazing time. So plan on being in Detroit in June and taking part in our international, same kind of thing. Be there, be square. Now, back to the main plot. So Alexis, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let you go ahead and take over the screen. We've exhibited Alexis' work at the gallery for a couple of years, like 5 or 7 years now so far, and we've done very well with her work. They are absolutely beautiful pieces that she creates, and she is a legend in the community. We'll talk more about, especially in Italy, which is kind of an exciting. I guess it's very novel. There isn't many female glassblowers in Italy. I think you might be the only one. Is that true, Alexis?
Yeah, there have been a few over the years, but yeah, no, currently, and since I've been working there for over the last decade, as far as I understand, I am the only woman creating her own works there in Murano, and just in the last several years, which is very makes me really happy and thrilled to see kind of hopefully been some kind of influence. There have been a few women actually getting into the studios, even acting as assistants and starting to take a little bit of more of a role in the glass world in Murano. But yeah, that is correct. It's millennia long male tradition there. And yeah, I am the only woman that is creating her own works and also exhibiting them on the island, but the only one creating her own works there on the island as a woman. And really, yeah, and we'll get more into that, but that's a very exciting part of very integral and exciting part of what I'm doing there, which I will talk more about also regarding the concept and the and just the technicality and the world I work and live in that I love.
That's what I call it. Definitely it's your time, which is really exciting. It's your time right now in the glass world, especially in that region. And before we continue, I want you to say hi to everybody. Your show's up and running, so I'm honored to have you here.
Yeah, and I just want to take a minute to thank the Habitat family and Aaron. Thank you so much. And Arlene, thank you for encouraging and making this event happen. And I just so thrilled to be a part of it. I've been represented by Habitat for quite a number of years now and just absolutely love working with them, and still considered one of the best glass galleries in the country. So it's a great family to be part of. So thank you, Aaron, and thank you for all of you for joining. Really appreciate that. Couldn't be artists without all of you to appreciate it. So
Right, that's for sure.
we could, but it wouldn't do as much, right?
Right.
So yeah, I'll go ahead and I'm going to get started with my presentation and just give you guys a little bit of an introduction. And I do want to say, feel free. I think Aaron will be viewing the chat room as well, and then posing any questions you might have throughout. So you don't need to wait to pose those questions till the end. Just go ahead and write in any questions you have, and Aaron will get those out to me, and I'll try and address them as we go. So hello, I am Alexis Silk, and I am a conceptual sculptor, and I work in glass. So glass has really been my medium of choice my entire career, and I'm very lucky I got into that really early on. But I really consider myself a conceptual sculptor using glass as my medium. So it's not that I came to glass and then decided what to make in it. It's that I really wanted to create ideas in the world, and glass, just, I'm so lucky I found it, is like running through my veins. So here is where I am now. And just to double check, Aaron, you guys are seeing just the slideshow, correct? You guys are seeing the screen
Correct.
properly?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure everything looks good before I get going here. So this is actually a picture from my balcony. I'm in my new house that my husband and I have built in the town of Lorenzago di Cadore. So I live nestled in the heart of the Dolomite Mountains. And it is just a, incredibly beautiful, beautiful, inspirational place that I live with my children and my husband. He's from there. This is right near where he grew up, and his parents live. And so I'm very, very lucky that we've built such a beautiful home there together. And this is just a picture that was from the balcony. This is of the house, just to give you guys an idea. I'm so proud. This is part of where I'm at right now in my life. And so this is my beautiful home that we've made, that we actually just finished building together. There in the Dolomites. And this was
it a pandemic build, or were you working it before the pandemic?
We had purchased it prior to the pandemic, but we got it. Yeah, I got it. We were actually in, thank goodness, for most of the pandemic. I think we moved in early 2020 or something like that. Nice. So fortunately, yeah, it was very nice to be locked in that larger space with the yard and everything. So yeah, it was the first year of the pandemic that we moved in. Yeah. So, but it took us 3 years to build. So yeah. And so this is my husband and I on that trip I mentioned before we started to Prague with my 2 boys. And so these are my 3 lights of my life. And, I was just saying, I never thought I could find something I love more than glass, but in these 3 human beings, I have found that. Of course, they also make me happy to go back to the hot shop too. Yeah, so these are, and I'm just giving you guys an idea of who I am and where I'm at and what I do, because my work is so much based on my world, as I think so many artists are. You really can see that evolution in my work, which is kind of what I promoted here, is that new release of this new series that is truly inspired by these wonderful people, by these 2 little love bugs and my husband. So this is truly the greatest inspiration for my work and my life, but we will get to that. It will come full circle. This is me in the studio in Murano. So I am currently, and have for the last 12 years, been working in this studio here in Murano, Italy. And I've been blowing glass for about 20 years, and for the last over a decade working here in Murano, and in this incredibly different setting. It's night and day from the world in America that I first grew up in, the hot shop here, and just so different. And I'll get more into that as well. So this is me in the studio there, and you can see that the work I make is really large. So this has always been something that I've wanted, even when I first tried blowing glass the first week, I was kind of, the teacher turned the other way and I had 4 or 5 gathers on my blowpipe. Working in a large scale has always been something that I have desired and strove to do. And the reason is not just enjoying the physicality and the partnership of the team, but also portraying the concepts that I desire. I really want people to relate to my pieces as they would relate themselves to it, not as seeing it as a doll or something distant from themselves, but actually being able to perceive my pieces as something they would relate to and see in themselves, or maybe in their loved ones, or in, the people around them. So that is one of the main reasons that I like working in this larger scale. But as you can see, the piece I'm holding here is a single bubble of molten glass that is worked from start to finish. There are no molds. It is simply manpower and woman power creating these objects the entire time in that scale bubble. So this is an incredibly large piece to be working in the hot glass for anyone, for man, woman, anywhere in the world. This is a very large piece of glass to be working. And I really contribute, that capability to the team that I work with there in Murano. I do not think that I could be making these pieces elsewhere. I truly believe that the people that I work with and have been working with for the last 10 years are, some of the very best in the world. And of course, the relationship that we have created and developed. So I'll be in demise. Get them now, because when they all retire, which they're all close to, they may not be happening anymore, at least not in this scale. So moving on. So again, here, I'm going to take it back now. So that's kind of an introduction to myself and my work. An overview. I'm going to kind of bring it back and start a little bit from the beginning. And so this is actually in the Northwest, where I am now at my mother's house. So there's my mom and my brother on the left. So I was born in Seattle in 83, almost 40 now. And I grew up in the Northwest and in Berkeley. And then I went to school at the School of the Art Institute. And, my mother, thanks to my mother, just about everything good in my life. So yeah, mothers know best. Mm-hmm. And so I went to school at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. And there they did not have glass. They haven't had glass since the 60s at the School of the Art Institute. Still I think it's just one of the absolute best art schools, at least for me. It was amazing, even though it didn't have glass. It really was right for me because it pushed the idea of conceptual art. And again, that is where I come from as an artist. I am a conceptual sculptor. I'm just very lucky that I found glass really early on in my career as that means of communication. So this is a life-size bronze and iron casting that I did actually in school. And here's and again, you can see the conceptual meaning here. It's very much along the lines of my concepts. It's a woman basically stating you can be, a beautiful woman and still, you don't have to be a man to be able to create things. And yeah, so you can see she's wearing, though it's a sensual classical woman, and she's still wearing a tool belt. So I'm talking about just the strength and femininity and that power there. So here is another full-size iron casting. So again, just very, very masculine based medium, but working these same concepts in school as well. And I then, as I said, thanks, mothers are always right. This is a picture of Pilchuck Glass School from the early 80s, late 70s, when it was first built. And this is a picture my mother took. So I was very lucky. My mom was in the right place at the right time, and she loved glass, and she recommended it to me while I was in school to try glass. And so I actually, thanks to her and because of her, went and took some courses at Pilchuck while I was still in school. I don't know how many of you recognize this fabulous person, but this is Pino Signoretto, who fortunately was teaching a class, not the class I was in when I went to Pilchuck. And I saw him and saw him work, and it changed my life. That was when I was like 19 years old, and I never went back. I immediately started working glass. Although I loved the medium, did not realize its infinite possibilities. And he really opened my eyes to that. So thank you to Pino Signoretto, because I'm sure I mimic what many other people would say. We would not be here in the glass world if it were not for him, many of us. And he was just so generous with sharing what he, his talent and expertise. So thanks to Pino, I never turned back. While I was in school, I got into glass blowing and just started pushing those limits and trying new things and breaking glass and making glass. So, this is not one of my first pieces. I'm going to spare all of you those earlier works. This is one of the series that I'm most known for. And again, I'm going to kind of overview some of my more popular series here and get into more detail then too. So, but this is one of my most popular series that I'm known for, which is the hanging figure series. And these are pretty aggressive, and they are one of my earlier works where, my works really relate to kind of where I am in my life and what I think is really important to talk about and address in society. And this is an earlier work where I did struggle with ideas of objectification and perception in society. So the figure, it is quite an aggressive concept that can be even painful for some to view and perceive, but I do think that it is important to still talk about these ideas in the world. And so, the hooks are even meant to represent like a meat hook, and that the woman is on display in the box. But you can see, if you look closely, there's actually carving away of the surface in this particular piece to reveal the colors underneath. So this is meant to represent, you can see the title is Beneath the Surface. So we're actually going into the figure and discovering what's below, and exploring and discovering the depth of the person, of the piece. And so these pieces are really meant for creating conversation and digging deeper and exploring the depth of both the piece and of what it means for us in society to get to know someone better and not judge for the surface. This is one of my winged figure series, and these are really, for me, celebratory pieces, as you see in the title, Celebration. These are meant to, the hanging figure series, I really did strive to communicate that concept. So I had to think and fabricate the object to form the idea that I wanted to express. These, on the other hand, for many artists, their inspiration and evolution is different, even for individual pieces. This piece for me, I had to make. I didn't know why. I just had to, or I was going to die. I had to put these wings on these figures and up in the air, and they were taking off and taking flight, and I just had to do it. And it wasn't until about 6 months after I was making them that I realized, oh my gosh, this is how my husband made me feel. And the pieces I started creating them about 6 months after meeting him. So it truly, for me, was this feeling and emotion of like the hooks were removed and these wings were sprouted in their place and just came out and I felt celebrated, and as if I was just taking flight in my own strength and femininity. So these, to me, are just these incredibly celebratory pieces that really celebrate the strength in femininity. And again, if anybody has any questions as I going, I know I love to talk and I'll go on and on, but if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and Erin can ask those and interrupt. So again, this is called Strength and Sensuality. So, and this is kind of more of almost a motherly emotion with the wings in the downward position, kind of more embracing. And so here's another example of that. And here again is a celebration of the femininity, of the feminine, and the connection in nature, which is also a concept that you'll see represented here quite a bit, is living in the Dolomites and really my connection with nature, and the feeling I feel that it is so important, nature in our world, and how we are so indeed connected.
I want everybody too to kind of pay attention. Alexis did us the favor of putting dimensions in the actual slides to give you an idea of scale, because it's kind of hard to tell from an image alone. And I think it's very important that you really grasp how hard she works and the scale that she works on when you see these particular pieces, 24 to 52 inches tall. It's quite remarkable.
Yeah, these are yeah, well over a meter high. So, they would stand off the floor almost up to your shoulder for someone who's my height.
Mhm.
So they are very large pieces. And that's why I gave that image of me holding the one right in the beginning, because it really does give you concept of the scale up to how large that I'm working. Yeah. And so again, yeah, just incredibly large pieces. I actually do these hearts quite larger than life size. They're large pieces, even the hearts. Even this hand is actually, again, here's another piece about embracing nature. And again, this is 5 times life size hand. It's ginormous hand.
Mhm.
So, and these are actually blown as well. So, and I think we should be getting into some of the photos of me working. Here's my husband. So sorry, jumping around. So here, this is when in 2011, I went to Italy for the first time, and I met my husband, and 5 years later we got married. And that is the time in which I started spending more time in Italy, back in 2011. And I met him on vacation, unrelated to blowing glass. He's actually a rock climber, which is why we met and share that passion for rock climbing. But it is when my work in Murano started, because I it's always about love, right? So
Mhm.
but yeah, I was lucky enough that it was near Murano, and so I had that accessible to me. So that is the time when I started, independently of my husband, working in Murano. So that was back in 2011. And here I am. This is in the studio in Murano, and that's me taking the hot glass onto the figure there. And one of them, that's the main maestro Cristiano, the Tozo that I work with, and I've worked with him for over a decade, along with most of the other people on my team. Some of them have gone into retirement already. But here we are in the studio there, and something to notice, which I talked about a little bit before, is that the factory setting there in Italy is so different than the United States. And I encourage all of you to come to Italy. If you haven't visited, come. If you have, come back and look me up. I will invite you to this private studio here to see the work in person. It's a very private studio. But it's, in my opinion, the best on the island for sculptural glass. And everything is different. The glass itself is incredibly different. It is more viscous, it is more fluid. We have like 20,000 pounds of clear glass and a huge tank and 4 other furnaces with molten colors in them. In the US, there's generally not molten colors. You have color that you add to the clear glass. Here we are mixing and making each of our own colors, including the clear glass. We are making it in-house. We are actually formulating the recipe and mixing it and charging. There's very little caution to the health of individuals in Italy. It's no OSHA. It's very, very much designed to get the job done and not for comfort. And you can kind of just, even the facilities there are so, nothing has changed much in the last many millennia. Whereas in America, things where it started here, the studio glass movement, everything's kind of designed for comfort. There it is not. And we, for example, everything is gas powered, not electric. And we don't take things off the blowpipe at the bench. We actually turn them in the blowpipe in the annealer. And all of these things are designed to help what I do. So in America, with electric powered kilns, it's very, very bad for my work. I have this massive scale with thin and thick things, all different kinds of connections. And the piece is never an equal temperature when we put it away. That's when you're going to have your breaking. In Italy, where I work, the studio, it is designed for this kind of work, this larger scale, work that is sculptural. So it works so well for me to work there. Here I'm actually working on a full figure in glass, and you can see I'm in the middle of doing the different body parts, and I'm measuring the connections, the connection points while I'm working. Here is working on a life-size male figure. So this is very, very large pieces. So I work with a team of never less than 3 of these wonderful, wonderful people, and that are incredibly skilled in their own right, and usually 3 or 4, and up as many as 8 on the largest scale. So I'll have 9 of us working simultaneously, including myself, 8 assistants, and they are all working at the same time to create these pieces. So that's me there with the face shield protecting myself, because there's so much heat coming off of those pieces. And so you can kind of see, the scale of the glory hole in the background there, and the crossbar that the guy is holding. So it's just a phenomenal feat of craftsmanship that goes into these pieces, and everyone on the team is part of that. It's just unbelievable. I really encourage you, to see all the videos on my YouTube channel and come and visit, because it is just it's like a ballet, but we're doing something so incredibly physical and hot beyond everyone's mental and physical limits, but it looks like this seamless ballet. It's just an incredible thing. And I do have a nice video treat at the end for us to see as well. So you'll see some of that when I'm talking.
It's for 69.
I'm sorry, did somebody say something?
Nope. Beautiful work though. 72 inches tall. Wow. Stunning and
Alexis?
ruby.
Yes.
It's Malcolm here. Do you have any relationship with Livio Seguso, and if so, how has he inspired your work?
Livio Seguso I know him personally from being on the island, and relationships. He actually has worked in this studio where I work. Many years ago, he worked in this studio, and sometimes when he has special needs, still comes and there's certain things that they do for him in the studio where I work. He is just my connection with him. I would say would be more a personal relationship connection. I just think he's a phenomenal individual, and just an incredibly beautiful human being, because he's so humble, and he is inspirational to me because of what his work is so different than my work. There couldn't really draw any parallels to that, but he is inspirational to me. I love his pieces. I would own them if I could. I think they're absolutely gorgeous, but he has been more inspirational as far as the art, and because in Murano, people it is so based in tradition. I think that is both their strength, but their flaw. And Livio Seguso, I think, should be an inspiration for so many people on Murano, because he is one that has defied what Murano glass is supposed to be. He has gone so far out on his own to make these unbelievable pieces that relate in no way to, what people envision or think of being Murano glass. He's just been such an inventor. He has reinvented what glass and Murano glass is. And that is an inspiration, because it is so fixated in tradition, unlike the US, that can really be harmful to the development of the Murano glass. And I think he is an inspiration to all for that. And not only because he did it, but it was wildly successful as well. His pieces are successful, but he also was successful in doing such. And, and I think that my work also really, really, it is recognizable as Murano glass, since I've been working there for over a decade, the colors and the color techniques. But as far as the sculpting techniques, I really was influenced from the United States with the inside out sculpting. The inside out sculpting that I do, my pieces are, and I haven't even mentioned that yet, but they are all done free form directly in the molten glass with no molds, hot sculpting, using the inside out sculpting technique that we're more familiar with in the United States. So like Martin Yanetsky is really known for that, as well as many other people in the US have explored this inside out sculpting technique, which is really quite a recent technique in the last, say 30 years at best, at most, And so and in Murano, no one had seen that. When they started seeing me doing that technique there, Roberto Dona, the tool maker who does Carla Dona tools in Italy, a friend of mine, he told me of all of these studios that were having him make my inside out sculpting tools for them. So it was a brand new technique that, once word got out in videos and things, even of just the, with the vicinity, the closeness and vicinity of what I was doing, people started exploring that sculpting option. So this is new to Murano, the inside out sculpting, like Livio Seguso. And I'm not, he doesn't do the inside out sculpting, but in the sense that it is a new thing,
revelation.
A new evolution to the technique of Murano. And it pleases me. People really worry about the copying in Murano because there's lots of copying. And my friend told me, hey, listen, I'm making your tools for people. And I said, well, good, because any kind of new evolution and, injection of development into the Murano glass community, it is good. It will help Murano continue to be in the forefront of the glass world.
So Alexis, you've spoken and people have asked questions now to explain a couple of things you discussed. One of them is, can you explain the inside out glass blowing technique so some people who don't understand it can get a grasp?
Yes. So inside out sculpting is there are these special tools that it's very, very rudimentary, a steel rod with a steel ball on the end in different size balls and different size curves. And it allows myself or the person working the glass to be able to go on the inside of the bubble and push out from the inside. And that now there are people making them in the United States. Karen Willenbring's husband makes them. Jason Johnson actually creates these inside out sculpting tools. I was very lucky, like thanks to an ex-boyfriend of mine, he made them for my birthday present. He made me my first pair. And like, I maybe never would have explored that technique had he not given me these. It's just simple steel rod with steel balls on the other end. And then that way you can see here an example on this piece, like the breasts, I actually push out from the inside while simultaneously carving the undercut from the exterior. So it allows you to get more voluminous forms out from the inside. And even on my faces and things, they're all blown. So all of my pieces are blown. And I'm able to then blown actually quite thin. And then I'm able to push out from the interior of the bubble as well as sculpting on the surface. I hope that makes sense. And we'll see some of that too in the videos also.
That definitely covers just the answer to that question. I had another question for you, which I'll probably answer. They asked, is it unique to work with such large pieces in large bubbles, or do other artists work on a similar scale? And I'd probably say no. You can probably talk about that too, Alexis.
There are artists that do work in this scale, but working in as large a single bubble is rare, very, very rare. There are just, there are not many people that work in that large of a scale. And I don't know of anyone that is, doing the kind of work that I do. It is unique in Murano and it is unique in the United States. It's unique in the world. The pieces that I'm making are unique. The figures, the female forms, blown, sculpted from the interior. I know Martin Blank does phenomenal figurative work in a very large scale, heavier, in fact. But his pieces are very different. They're solid sculpted, perhaps more abstracted. So there are people working in this scale, but it is rare and not doing what I'm doing. So, but in any case,
we'll say it's an elite group.
It is an elite group, and I think, it's rare for anyone. And then being a woman, I think there perhaps that category even shrinks. And again, I just really emphasize what a phenomenal team I work with. I was trying to do the scale work in the US for many years, and it wasn't until I got to Murano working with this team that I was able to really achieve and arrive at my vision. So, I do really, really, I always say my work is only as good as my team. And that's really true, especially talking about this kind of scale. I mean, you need a crew that can handle it and embrace it. And I'm pushing them, this is not an exaggeration. Anytime I put my foot in the hot shop, I am pushing myself and everyone on my team beyond our limits every time. There is not a single day, it's not a Wednesday afternoon that we are not pushing our limits. So, and that's why the work continues to grow and develop at such a rapid rate. So that's you can see a difference from one year to the next with my work. So
I had a question to ask too, like the technique of you'll see later in the video of lifting the glass. Was this something that was created in Murano already, or something you had to come up with? What was the whole process of that?
Well, yeah, you'll see actually in the video at the end. So working with my team, they will actually take 4 people just to lift the blowpipe, 2 people on a crossbar and 2 people turning the blowpipe. This is something that, I have seen various places, using the crossbar to help with the weight, because no one can lift the weight that we are dealing with. But to speak again towards the studio that I work at, this is something they do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They use the crossbar to go back and forth to reheat the piece. Like they don't, it is as much done that way as not. They are so accustomed to using the crossbar because they work in that scale every day of the week, so it's something that, I think they were going through the 20,000 pounds of clear glass by Wednesday. So
Wow.
it's they were having to charge the furnace on Wednesday evening, 20,000 pounds. And this is, this is a team of 8 men that are lifting all of that out and then reheating all of that over and over until it goes in the kiln. So it's just a phenomenal team, and I don't know how they do it, how their bodies do it day in and day out. I at least get a little break when I need it. So
thank you.
But yeah, getting back to the slideshow, and again, please, I love the questions, so keep them coming. But just to get back on track for the slideshow, sorry about one of those being crooked there. This is, you can see also the color technique. I want to just mention that because it's very specifically Murano as well. You can see here in these pieces, really all the colors I do are so specifically Murano glass and so recognizably Murano glass. That's probably the #1 reason that my work is recognized as being from Murano is the colors. So here you can see that fade from the aqua to the blue. That we're melting those colors ourselves, so they're particularly pristine and vibrant. But that technique of doing that fade is actually a technique that the studio that I work with has come up with, and it's a very complicated technique where you're actually making 2 vessels fade and then stuffing one inside of the other. And then to complicate things, then we're adding that Zenfirico cane on the outside, and you can see that cane running from the shoulder down to the leg there. And that's actually a cane that we prepare in advance. And I have some detailed shots later on of that as well that we'll be able to see it. So it looks like this woven glass, which is also traditionally a Milanese technique, that Zenfirico cane, which you will see in other people's works as well. That technique has made it all around the world, but not this fade from one color into the next. Even other studios of Murano have asked me, how do you do that? So here's another example of that. And again, this is other pieces from my hanging figure series that again represents that kind of that feeling. This is, here you have this tension of the woman being hung up and put on display. So I'm showing a number of these. We're going to go through various series in my work here, somewhat chronologically from when they developed. So again, this is talking about that hanging figure series and objectification. Here's another horizontal format that I've done that is not particularly conceptually charged, but definitely developed out of living and being in Murano there. This very watery boat-like form, again, always working with the figure, but just so influenced by working there on the island and the lagoon. So I really love this piece, just more from an aesthetic standpoint, you know, the woman just floating on the water as like a boat. Here is talking about the woman as energy. And so here is this female form turning, just flowing out into infinity. It's like an infinity symbol, and you know, showing that energy just flowing off the woman, that feminine energy. I love this piece. I think it really expresses that emotion, both, you know, abstracting the woman, and so it's interesting because, you know, I think not uncoincidentally, you know, I of course am a woman and you know, and I'm working in this incredibly masculine world and everything, and making these incredibly, you know, intensely physical pieces with all of these men, and you know, but my work, although they are intensely physical, they look light, they look flowy, and they are very much about women. You know, they're about femininity and expressing, you know, these challenging aspects of the objectification of women in the world, all the way to the celebration of women in the world, to energy about women and the connection of women through nature. But they really do evolve a lot around, you know, the feminine and the different aspects of that. And so it is, you know, it is not a surprise being a woman, but it has some kind of, you know, irony that these pieces are so, you know, wrapped up in this physicality, this masculine physicality, yet in their end result are portraying this incredibly feminine, light, flowing feel. That, you know, as I said, you know, I feel so lucky to have found glass so early on, because the glass, I try and show that movement and that life and that fluidity that the pieces have when making them in the final form.
I can imagine like the positive energy and the response people get once they have these works installed in their home. Like, you feel like every time you see one of these, you're kind of feeling an ethereal leveling up of your consciousness, because they're just so uplifting and so beautiful.
Yeah, especially, you know, and it really shows where I've, you know, these developments that I've gone through my own life, you know, the hanging figure series, which are still so popular, you know, and I'll never move away from those because they're so popular. But it is kind of this more tension, really, you know, internal struggle pieces. And then you can see now, which as we're getting further through my line of work, and therefore my development in life, into all the way into motherhood, which will arrive. And it just really shows like you were saying, this uplifting, you know, the good place that I have moved to really shows in the pieces. And you're right, Erin, you know, it is so important, means so much to me, the reaction and what I see from the pieces, the reaction from the people that are living with the works. It is why I still, you know, my business is doing so well in Italy. I really don't need to come and do shows in the US anymore, but I do it because I really love that reaction. It is why I do this. You know, I'm very lucky that I've been so successful, but the true reason that I do this is that meaning that I'm putting out in the world. And for example, just last weekend at my last show, I had a woman just bawling in my booth, reacting to a piece. And the week before in Palm Beach, another woman, you know, last weekend, it was about the life piece that is the family of hands, and just literally tears streaming down her face. And then 2 weeks before that, another woman at the last show, tears streaming down her face, looking at an angel, you know. And so that reaction of you know, this emotion that I'm able to you know, that I see from these pieces is why I do this. That is why I do this. And it means so much to me. And it, you know, it's like, unfortunately, the one last week, the woman couldn't afford the piece to live with. And I, you know, it was like, I literally said to her, like, because of this, I know I'm doing the right thing in the world. You know, it didn't matter whether she was able to purchase it or not. The week before she was, and fortunately we'll be able to live with the angel, but, you know, not everyone is that fortunate, and it doesn't, you know, it doesn't matter. That is why, you know, these pieces are out there in the world. So it really is so meaningful to me, that reaction. And here is a piece again. And so now we're moving away from the bodies and really into hands and things more. So here's a piece again, that connection with nature and the embracing nature. and the importance of I believe nature, especially in this, as we're moving into more, hard climate change and everything. I just think nature is so important. I really live in a place where that is such a large influence in my life. Here is another winged figures series. So again, you're seeing, there's so much going on here. You have, the technique from Murano, you have that beautiful fade in color. This piece is, again, huge. I mean, the figure is, large, edging towards life size. The wings are, 90 centimeters long. This piece is ginormous in technique, but yet feels so light and so airy and so uplifting. And so, there are a lot of dichotomies in my pieces. So it's very, very, it's strong, but it's light and sensual at the same time. And that's what I'm going for, showing that actual strength and femininity. Not saying someone has to be, that the actual strength and celebration is being feminine.
Quick question for you about the wings and the figure. Are the wings attached hot, or are they added as a part of the installation? How does it usually work with these particular pieces?
So that is an excellent question, Aaron. I strive to do everything hot in my work. Almost all my connections are hot. However, I did want to get these pieces to life size, and as long as the wings were down, that seemed to work okay hot. When you're getting up to 1.5 meters tall with the wings in the air flapping around, you can't do it hot anymore, unfortunately. So and I challenge anybody to try.
As a gallery owner, I thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. And it works well for collectors too. And I always say, save your original boxes. You never know if you're going to move or something, but they are detachable. So I have these, I as my team is the best with the hot glass, I have also, you got to have a great team behind you. The metal worker that I work with is on Murano, is specialized for this work, combining specifically metal and glass. He works with Davide Salvadore, Lino Tagliapietra. This is the same person that does their metal work that combines with their glass pieces. So the individual stainless steel connections are handmade, each one, and they simply slide in and out and have a tiny little set pin. So they're incredibly beautifully designed, practically, unnoticeable, and does allow you to move and ship the pieces easily. So that has been a great development in the work. You have to develop as your ideas and develop, so does the technical behind them in order to be able to make these things happen. It's not just a matter of envisioning and sculpting a ball of clay. It's like there's so much going on technically to be able to make these pieces happen. So here's another example of that winged figure series. And this is actually, there's inlaid silver in the wings here. And then that stripe, I think I have a close-up of that. You can see there's that lattice work in the cane that is running through the figure. So I've created that black Zemfirico cane prior to creating the figure. And that's not painted on or anything. That's actually woven glass that's inlaid within the glass on the body there. And you can notice also what is something I love about this piece is that gesture and that motion. You can see she's not only taking flight, but also, twisting and turning. So I really do strive to show that gesture. And again, that movement that the glass has while I'm working it, I want to show that in the final form, that movement and gesture, and really giving, again, that feeling that these pieces are alive, that they could be, relating them to yourself or your mother or your daughter or your wife, is something that, to something that is more relatable. Again, here's that lattice work there. And this is meant to almost look like a dress. And I just love, the sensuality in the pieces. I really try to emphasize and accentuate that sensuality and not shy away from it. I love that. And you can see it's almost like if you notice, there is an opening in the dress. It's like the lace is the dress, and then there is an opening in it to, again, also let the viewer inside the figure. Here is another one of my very popular designs with the racing stripes here. And again, that very intricate lattice work. So this is, again, very, very traditionally Milanese technique. And here is just, again, more subdued concept, just showing the elegance and sensuality and very dignified woman here, very standing with the flower. Here is a piece that does not relate specifically to women, but more about humanity as a whole. And so this piece is called Humanity, and this is something that I've always felt very strong about, but was going through the Black Lives Matter movement and everything, I thought was particularly pertinent in our current times. But yeah, I grew up in Berkeley, California, so I was quite a liberal growing up myself. But this is talking about how all the different people in the world should come together to hold up humanity as a whole. So you can see it's a human heart with the different colored hands holding up the human heart. So I love that piece. I think it's really a great piece for everyone. It's such a lot of the concepts that I work with, I think they're pretty universal. Even if I'm dealing a lot with female concepts, the works the ideas tend to be fairly universal. Here it's a heart hanging on a hook. And this just is talking about all of the different emotions that we go through in life, whether it be a hard day at work or, an anniversary. This is just talking about our emotions, living life, living through our emotions. And this is, so I would say about 6 years ago, I moved into a more cerebral realm in my work. And this is still pre-children, which we'll get to, but I kind of, still working on with the bodies a lot, of course, but moved into a more cerebral realm. And that's around actually the same time that I really was influenced. So my first huge influence in my work was Pino Signoretto, as I mentioned, who's the figurative sculptor, Milanese figurative sculptor. Another person, the next person that really influenced me in my work is Martin Janetsky. And he does male faces. For those of you who don't know him, you should. He does the most unreal, it's like a Michelangelo of glass, the most surreal male faces that look so realistic and so expressive. And he really influenced me a lot in my work. He would probably be the second largest influence. And so once I kind of saw what he was doing, I took to myself to try and explore that as well. It was, again, kind of like, oh my gosh, this is even more than what I knew was possible out there. So I've been through much dismay, been working on this face series, which is really, at a time that I was moving into a more cerebral realm in my own life. And I've become to a place where I'm actually quite happy with them now. So I'm moving into various items in this series, more of a black and white series as well. So here you can see one of those faces. And then here's another hanging figure series that we've already talked about. Again, that lattice work. An angel with the inlaid silver. This is just a grouping of more of that contemporary coloration palette here with the white. You can see very, very classical. I think that my work has also been influenced, being in Murano, I have a very classical influence, but very contemporary concepts. So I really do, quantify my work as being both classical and contemporary. And I think you can really, this piece really exemplifies that quantification. Again, same thing here. You have very, very classical, almost like marble look, but yet feels very contemporary, being a contemporary artist. So this piece is fun. This, I think, is kind of like something where I was like, how far can I take this? How far can I take what I do? This piece, as you can see, is 80 inches. So this is larger than life. And you can see the detail there on the hands and the face. And again, my work is very, very conceptual. So I wasn't just going to make a full figure to make a full figure. There had to be a reason why. And so as I was talking about my concepts being very universal, this one's a money slave. And it was talking about ideas of how, money dictates the world and us. And I think that, you know, whether you're a bum on the street or the richest man in the world, we can all relate to inevitably somewhat, you know, being connected to money. We have to use it to live and move through the world. So I thought this was just a, you know, a socially commentative piece. And so the coins that are both on her skirt are also binding her chains, they're actual money euros. So she's being bound, if you see at her ankles and her wrists, she is actually chained by actual euros.
I gotta ask, where is this piece now?
It's made a tour. It's on its way back to Italy, actually, for a showroom there that is going to be displaying it, available for purchase for $500,000. So, but it
includes all the euros free of charge.
Yeah. All the euros that are hanging on it are included in the price. Yes, no, it's
Wow.
it is definitely a museum quality piece, and it also is detachable. So it's actually disassemblable and assemblable in 6 pieces. So it was also, you know, a technical feat. Not just, and this was actually the piece I was measuring in one of those photos earlier. So just to get all of the connections right. And I've actually made one of these for a commission as well. So there are several of these out in the world in homes. This one is still available to the public, but otherwise, yeah. So I have made several of them that are commission based. So yes, no, very, very, very challenging, exciting piece. Takes more than a year to build one of these. So yeah,
Thank you.
really exciting. Yeah, I only made 7 or 8 heads till I found one that was worthy.
Right, trying to gauge the ability to make it all match up is quite astounding. I couldn't do it when I was a kid in ceramics, so it's amazing to see it done in glass.
Yeah, the proportions is one of the largest challenge, and of course the hands and the face need to be just right, because that's really, you know, you want to show the you know, the detail, the accuracy of the detail in those. Here is another. So here are some more of the face series. So this is really moving into one of my more current moving towards my more current series. So and this past year I've just been using a tremendous amount of gold in my work. So this is actual real gold inlaid in all of the glass, in the base and the flowers and the hair and the figure. So this is again just hot sculpted, free form with no mold. So even the face is just that inside out sculpting technique where I'm pushing out from the inside. The glass itself is only about 1/4 of an inch thick. So except for the hair is thick, all solid glass, but the face and the shoulders are all one bubble that is blown very, very thin. And you can see it's like, I love the gold on this piece. It almost looks like freckles. Very
beautiful. Love the hair.
Yeah. Again, just showing that molten glass and the form. So this is the Calcedonia. And again, you can see that gesture and movement that I'm really trying to play, and yet still very feminine. And, you know, I reference Martin Yanetsky as a huge influence in my work, but I think I've tried about 1 or 2 male heads, and I've never seen him make a girl. So we've got these kind of, you know, he's a great influence in my work, but really have taken it in my own direction, as, you know, that I often work with ideas of the feminine and everything. So really taking that in my own direction, being the very feminine, sensual, trying to just show that again, even though it's more cerebral, you know, you have this one's kind of more contemplative, but again, very gestural. And this piece here, I really wanted to show that sensuality and that emotion, the emotion in her, you know, feeling. So you can see that gesture, and you know, she's also very serene and contemplative, which I love about these these faces. And so about 3 years ago, I had 3.5 years ago, I had my first child. And so many of my collectors said, "How is this going to influence your work?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know. If it does, it'll be natural. You know, I didn't rush it." And then I had my second child, and it hadn't influenced my work. And I had my second child Had to do something during COVID, right? And then all of a sudden, after I had my second child, about a year after I had my second child, and I really got back into working again, all of a sudden this year, it was just this past year, I had this absolute explosion in my work, just this unbelievable artistic explosion. I cannot even describe it enough. It was like it came up inside of me, and I hadn't pushed how my children would influence my work. I just kept, having babies and making work. And all of a sudden this year, it was like I was just going to absolutely die if I didn't. It was kind of like the angels a while back. And if I didn't do this, I was gonna, something bad was going to happen. And so I set to it, and I just had this unbelievable explosion of different works in this series. So this is actually the very, very first, and it was not as hard as the female heads. The female heads I've been working and working and working, and I'm kind of happy with them now. Of course, I'm my worst critic. But then the baby faces, this was the very first one I ever made. And it just, you can see it. I must have been studying them all that time, because when I went to do it, it just came out of me, and its expression and everything, the emotion and the anatomy. I just really, really been so pleased. Oops, sorry, there's the title. Apparently I have the title right in the middle of her neck there. Sorry about that. Didn't catch that. But so you can see here, and this actually, both of these have fuming on the outside. So you can see that glistening is the fuming. I did not have a girl, but this is a little baby girl. So I thought, and so here is also, this is just one of the pieces I'm most excited about right now. This title is called Love. And I love this series so much. And I can feel by looking at this, this is a brand new piece. And I think it was like the first couple weeks after I made it, I was so excited, and I was showing it to everyone. And every time I showed it to someone, I would just start crying, talking about my work affecting others. I had never been so affected by my own work. Every time I showed this piece to someone, it even makes me tear up now. I can just feel the love that I feel for my children when I see this piece. And it means so much to me to be able to communicate that emotion in something physical here. And I know babies grow up, and not everybody has babies. People don't have babies for very long, but I think that emotion stays forever. That emotion is I've never experienced any kind of emotion like that for one's child. And so I feel so good about putting these pieces out in the world that express that love, and you can just see the connection. And again, talking about the hot connection. So I'm actually creating the baby face in the molten glass, sculpting it freehand, and then I'll keep it hot while I create the mother's face. So these are very long, detailed pieces to be making. And these are life size. And then I'll actually attach the baby to the mommy hot. So you have 6 hours invested or more. This is a full day of work in the hot shop, nonstop. Everybody's working the whole time, and you're not getting any breaks. And then you go ahead and you have one shot to get that connection and right, technically, and the emotion and everything you're striving for. So you've got one shot. So it's a whole day of work, and then you've got this one shot to stick them together. So very, very challenging, dangerous pieces to make, because it is a huge amount of work to then try and attach those hot. But of course, you wouldn't have that emotion or that imagery if they weren't attached hot. It's something that needs to be done directly in the hot glass. And you can see there even the transparency in the glass, that connection with the child and the mother there, that embracing in the hot glass. You can see they're just, and again, I can feel that emotion with, that I feel when I'm with my children and embracing them. So I'm so happy about these pieces. And this is going on in that series. I'm just so excited about these series. I cannot express, and I think it shows in the work, just what a great place I'm at right now in my life. You know, just there's so much joy and the joy that I have for my children, but then again, that joy that then is translating into the hot shop. You know, it's like my happy place is the hot shop. You know, my happy place is with the children because I have the hot shop, and the hot shop because I have my children. So, you know, they're so, although they are not together, they are so interconnected. I think parents can, you know, appreciate that. So so here's the head embracing, and again, note the scale, because that hand, the baby head is life size. So imagine how large the hand is. The hand is huge. I mean, it is absolutely ginormous. It's massive hands, and it's blown. So even the hand is blown glass. And again, there's that hot connection. You can just kind of see the emotion of the child resting on the hand. I just love the emotion that you can get from the faces there. And here again, it's huge hand. So the baby hand is almost close to a normal hand, and then the large hand is really quite big. Here's you have that embracing of the child's baby hand and the very large hand. And you can see the blown bubble there as well, the embracing. So this has been really fun. And of course, you know, and it really is, you know, my life is a relationship with all of you collectors out there. I have to, this has been such an explosion for me this year, but I actually have to give credit to one of my wonderful collectors to almost kickstart that exploration, because they said, how would you represent our family? You know, as I was sending out all these images from emails with my beautiful family and everything. And it kind of kickstarted me into that series and that emotion. And of course, you know, I didn't start with a single hand and a baby hand. No. I had to, or small. I didn't start with it being, you know, small or just two hands. No. I started with it being with this piece with 4 hands, huge. And so that's how this all started. And so again, talking about the investment of time. So this piece, just please note, this is massive. This is, you know, 30 inches. This is, you know, 2.5, 3 feet. So it is huge. And it's four hands. This piece is such a 3-dimensional piece. It's very hard to read, but it's actually a large adult hand, huge, 5 times life size, holding with a baby hand holding it, and then another large hand with a baby hand holding it, and then they're all attached. And this is actually solid because I wanted it instead of being blown. So it's very, very, very heavy. This piece weighs well over 50 pounds. So imagine that off the end of the blowpipe, moving around, and we've invested a whole day of work, and then we go ahead and we try and put them together with that one shot. And I just love how this came out. You can kind of see here how the pinkies are just almost touching. And this is the opposite side. You have the 2 hands, the children's hands embracing. And of course, the baby hands are sculpted differently than the adult hands for the anatomy. It's very, very hard to read this piece because it's such a 3-dimensional piece. And you can actually see an image of me attaching these on my Instagram. Was just incredible feat. You know, it's chaos, everybody's screaming, but yet it's, you know, everything's under control, of course. Wink, wink. So, and here we have this is actually an example of the piece I was talking about that someone was really moved by last weekend. I did sell this piece last weekend, but unfortunately was not able to sell it to the person that was crying over it, but the other person was just as moved as well. So this is the piece that, was just so moving from last weekend that I was talking about, someone, you know, being crying about just from the connection they were having with the piece. So this is a family. It's called Life, and it's the father and the mother and the child, you know, each holding one another, and then the child holding a flower. And that flower, so obviously the family holding the hands holding each other is meant to represent, you know, the importance and connection of family, and the flower represents growth and the cycle of life. And so, you know, I think this is really exemplary of my new series, of the family series, and where I'm at right now in my own life. And again, this is, you know, huge. This piece, these hands are much larger than life size. So it seems like Aaron was noting, you know, it looks from the image that it's small, but it's actually really large. These hands are really big and they're all solid. Again, this probably weighs, you know, 30 pounds or something. And the glass base itself is, you know, 10 inches wide, but it looks tiny in the photo also from the viewing, kind of from the angle upward. So yeah, just keeping in mind the scale. And again, they're all attached hot. So creating the flower and putting it where I can keep it hot, and then creating the little hand, putting it near the flower to keep it hot, and then creating the mommy hand, keeping it hot, then creating the daddy hand, and then slowly pulling out one piece at a time, the mommy hand, attaching it to the daddy hand, then the baby hand, laying that inside the mommy and the daddy hand, and then the flower. So it's all done in one sitting. Takes a whole day of work with all of my team members. Is very, very detailed, extensive piece. So I think, you know, my newer series really has gone technically towards a lot more detail and time consuming, but definitely, you know, just I'm so happy with the with what the messaging and imagery that I'm putting into the world right now. I just feeling very, 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 very happy and good in life, and thankful to all of you for, you know, it's been so well received, the new series, and that of course means everything to an artist, having that new work be received so well. And I've just had such a good response to it, and I've only just begun with this beautiful series, and of course as we move through life, new series develop. So yeah, catch it while you can now, because it's always you know, I hope to be doing this series for the rest of my life, but we'll see. You know, things are always fleeting, it feels like. So
Alexis, how far away from the video are we now in your presentation?
We are very close. It's next slide. So I just wanted to end it full circle with my family here, and another picture of my family, my beautiful family, and thanking them, my inspiration, my two little guys. You see always on mommy there, and daddy's a great help. And here is my so thank you from all of us. And here is the video I'm going to play. Are there any questions before we get into the video, in case anybody wants to leave?
Somebody asked what was fuming before you play the video.
I think it's something that, you know, Tiffany would do a lot. So, you know, that kind of iridescence, it like creates an iridescence. It's something that they don't do in the US because it's very toxic. And in Italy, they don't really care about that toxicity stuff much. So it's something that you do. We do it. You can do it at the end of the piece to create kind of like a film of iridescence that's actually burned into the glass. You probably would recognize it as like the, you know, Tiffany glass is usually, I think, often fumed, that kind of iridescent film that it looks like, but it is indeed like fused on the glass. And then we also fume whenever we inlay gold. We fume the gold before we gather on top of it, because it actually seals and locks the gold. So that's probably also why you don't see as much gold in the US, because it needs to be fumed to lock it in. And they really don't do fuming in the US because it's so toxic.
And there's a lot of older works from the 70s when all glass looked alike, with a lot of fumed glass. So yeah, it's a commonality from the past, but it's still applicable today. Well, thank you everybody for joining today. I know we're a little over, so if you're able to hang out and watch a little bit of a video with Alexis about her process.
Can you hear?
I can, yes.
Yes. So we have your Crimson Suspense in our home.
Wonderful.
And we love it. And of the pieces we have, this is the one piece that absolutely everybody comments on and says they love it. Is there anything in particular about this one?
I mean, you were hearing me talk about, the hanging figure series are probably my most iconic Alexis Silk work. And you're right, you know, they just, and although, you know, I am fortunately not personally dealing with these ideas of perception in society anymore, I think they are so important. And I think that they are very striking to people. And so I like, you know, I still get, you know, such unbelievably strong reactions from that series. And sometimes they are, you know, negatively charged. And I think that really just exemplifies how successful the series is. You know, you want reaction from art. That shows good art. It is not just a pretty vessel sitting there to be beautiful. It is a work that is commenting on current day society, getting an emotional, and visceral reaction from people. That to me, what is unique about that series is that, that conceptually it's very, very conceptually charged. And the Crimson Suspense, perhaps even, more so in that line, because it has that, that visceral red.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's a great piece that, well, it's very timeless. So I'm glad that you are enjoying that and that other people are enjoying it too.
What was that made in Murano? Did you make that in Murano?
I believe so. It depends from the time period. If it's from the last decade.
2019.
So yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you.
And absolutely. And is that one you bought with Habitat then?
Yes, we got it
Yes,
from Aaron.
Yeah, the large one. So yes, I know that one well. Yes, that's very unique. Actually, it's unique both in its scale and at the scale is also really, really unique on that, because there are, less of that series in that scale. It's just very, very hard to work in that size.
Oh, it's
very,
beautiful. It's just gorgeous, and it gets so much comment.
Yes, especially powerful in that scale. Yes,
Yep.
absolutely. I really appreciate that. And I'm so pleased that you were able to tune in and hear more about me and my series, and that you're still enjoying the piece so much.
I would love to get to Murano. I've been there once, but I would love to come back. And if we get there, we'll definitely would like to visit your studio.
Please, yes, look me up. I cannot wait. Just give me a little bit of advance and we'll arrange it. Absolutely. And that goes for anyone. I love sharing the private studio there, because there's no way, even from this video, that you can really understand, the connection with the team and the really.
Why don't you play the video, Alexis? So you
Yeah,
can kind of get
so,
an idea.
yeah,
And you
we
can talk
can do
over
this.
it too.
Yep. And I know.
Time to go.
Oops. Oh, let's see if I can get it to play. There we go. And I'm gonna
Go
see if I
ahead and
can
mute that. Yeah, scroll on the bottom there. There you go.
I'm gonna turn down the volume on the video so I can talk. So this here, and I'm just gonna kind of talk over the video. Is that all right?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so this is the studio that I work in, and this is the maestro Cristiano Tozo that I work with. And so on all of my other than my life-size pieces, I am doing all of this preparation, gathering the glass, blowing the bubble. For my life-size pieces, which I'm featuring here on the video, Cristiano will actually prepare the bubble, because it's just so physically taxing that you have to share the fatigue. So he's preparing the bubble, and actually even now a different maestro will take the last couple gathers. So even he is sharing the fatigue, because then he has to heat it. So with the largest pieces, I'm not even gathering the glass, but on any other work, I'm actually doing the gathering the glass and doing the bubble preparation. But you can see here just the unbelievable, one of the most incredible things about my work is the team aspect of it. It's just, these guys are so phenomenal and they're so dedicated. They're like my soulmates. We have this connection where we're not even having to communicate when we're making the glass. They know what they need to do without me doing anything at all. And if they don't do it, then a simple nod of the head, or look in my eye, glint in my eye, and all of a sudden they're doing it. So
we call that the glass grunt.
yeah. I mean, there's not even a grunt. It's literally like a glint in my eye, or a not one of these, nod of the head, and so this, and I've actually had multiple people that I work with go into retirement. Actually, one of the guys carrying the thing here, 3 of the guys on the team here are actually in retirement. So these guys are old.
You're pushing them out of the business with your difficult work.
Yeah, well, but for example, the culture there is so different than the United States. These guys haven't even gone to high school. They started working in the studio here. The maestro that I've been working with has been working in the studio here for longer than I've been alive. He started when he was 14. So he's been working with glass longer than I've been alive. 14 years old. He was in the shop. He's been a maestro since he was like 20, which usually that doesn't happen until you're 40. you know, and when he was 20, he became a maestro. So this is him right there. The grunt, that's the glass blowing grunt right there. It's hard work, even when you've been working for 40 years. And so you can see there are 2 people turning the blowpipe, 2 people holding the weight. Here I go. The bubble's all gathered now. So now I start to get to work. So I'm putting in the jack line, and is a huge quantity of glass. You know, it's so hard to perceive from the video how much glass this is. It's just a huge amount of glass. And so here I've already set in the jack line and the waste. That's where I'll put in the waste there. And something else that you can notice about, which is really different about Murano glass and working in Murano, the glass itself is really much more liquid and moves a lot more than the actual chemical makeup of American glass. But also, technically, they work it hotter. In America, the technique is to work glass very cold. And in Murano, just notice how fast that piece is moving. In Murano, the technique, millennia old technique, excuse me, is to work the glass very, very hot. And that has been something that I have learned to adapt to, working the glass hot. And it's been a struggle, you know, between me and my assistants. You know, I'll say too hot, but they you know, they resist. And I have thus learned to work the glass in the Murano tradition hot. And that has been some you know, really interesting for me, learning that.
Like concept of the depth of the glory hole, to be able to handle something this large is something you don't see very often. You know, it's so wild that they're able to just do that off the bat there in Murano for you.
Yeah, and I mean, even the glory hole and everything is not designed to be comfortable the way in Italy it is. And don't even ask me why. I'm sure there are reasons behind it, how it works better for certain things, but you know, there's not the comfortable yokes and everything. You have to have somebody push you out and push you in, and you know,
somebody asked what's the advantages of the glass being so hot. Is there advantages?
I think that someone who's not used to it, like myself, when I first got there, would struggle a lot with it. But now that I am used to working the glass really hot, I can't go back. I mean, I am working molten glass as my medium. It wants to be hot. Like in my mind now, it's harder. It's harder. The hotter it is, it's moving faster. You have to be more precise. You have to be quicker. But it is hot glass. It wants to be hot, right? So, I mean, that's how I feel now after having worked there for over a decade. I struggle very much with American. I just did a demonstration at the Benziton Glass Studio in Florida, and I first thing I did when I walked in was had them crank up the furnace. I took my first gather. I'm like, what is this? It's so cold. And I had them, they turned it up about 200 degrees for the entire visit that I was there. You know, it was the first thing I had them do is crank up the furnace. I'm so used to working the glass much hotter, but it is more challenging for someone that would not be used to it. But now that I'm used to it, it's the way it wants to be. You know, you want to convince the glass to do what you want it to do. You want it to want.
Alexis.
Sorry.
Say your name. Go ahead.
Malcolm here again. Alexis, doing the glass the way you're doing, blowing it and so forth, do you have much polishing to be done and at what temperature do you polish?
Okay, so the polishing is done when the glass comes out of the kiln, and so I'll anneal my pieces. They'll stay in the kiln for up to a week long. And then once it comes out, that's when any finishing work is done in the cold shop. They have a phenomenal cold shop here in the studio as well, with cold workers. That's all they do. It's not like America, where the artist will work their piece all the way through most commonly. In Italy, I have the master cold workers working on my piece, and I will be involved as much as I need to be artistically. But that polishing is done when the glass is cold, and it's done with diamond and grit, and there's water. So we use water as a lubricant because you do not want the glass to heat up. If it heats up once it's cold, it will break. So if it gets too hot too quickly once it's cold, it can create tension again in the glass. So you have the water as a lubricant for cutting and polishing. And another way that the cold work is different in Italy, in Murano, is that it's just a continuation of that really high quality pristineness of the glass. So in the hot glass, they pick out any bubbles, they're melting their own glass. It's very pure, it's very clean. In the cold shop, that there's just an extension of that. When I was cold working my pieces, 2 decades ago in America, I wouldn't look for little imperfections on the surface to cold work out. But in Murano, where I work, they do all of that. They will inspect the piece head to tail, and they will polish out any teensy tiny little scratch or imperfection that may have happened in the kiln. They polish it all out. So there is more, even though the work comes out cleaner than it would in the US, they still do more cold working to bring it even to that next level of, purity as well. So, but as far as like the changing of the form, none of that happens in the cold shop. That's all done in the hot shop. The cold shop is just for finishing the piece where it was attached to the blowpipe. Here we are going into the kiln, as I said.
Right.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And is the facility in which you're operating your facility, or do you rent time when you work there?
So I rent time at the facility, and it's, that's another way. In every way, everything's different than the US. In the US, generally I would rent a facility, and then I would put together, it would just be the facility, and then I would individually hire and compilate my team. And in Italy at this studio, it's everything inclusive. So I'm renting the time there, and then everything is included. The team is there, their workers. It's kind of like renting a whole factory, and that includes the glass they're melting, and I can, choose my colors we melt, and working with the studio owner on their own needs as well. And then that goes all the way through to the packing, the spray foam that we have. It's very, very, like I said, it's the top studio on the island for sculptural work. And, it's very professional. We have the spray foam and the crates being built, and that's all included in that rate that I'm paying for the hot shop, which is, hundreds of times more than I pay in the United States. Just quantify it without shooting actual numbers out to you guys, but it is an unbelievable rate, literally, that you would not believe. But it is worth every centimo, every penny, because it is truly priceless for an artist what I get from them, which is limitless artistically. I can dream it, we can make it, period. And that is priceless for an artist. So, and the work, like Aaron was saying, I can't even create an inventory for a show so enough, because it's selling so rapidly, even there on the island, for resale. So, there's, it is worth every penny, because the work is justifying that price. So.
Well, thank you, Alexis. Go ahead and stop sharing your screen. I appreciate you sharing your entire story with us. And it really is impressive to see what you're doing and creating, and your visions coming to fruition as these different bodies appear. So thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, I'll do it for you. There you go. It is great to have you do this talk. Like I said, a lot of the works that we had in our presentations available have sold, but if you like her style, if something has jumped out at you, contact us. She has some slots open for commissions, and would love to create something just for you out of her repertoire of amazing sculpture. So beautiful, powerful pieces. And thank you again, Alexis, for joining us today. Honored to have you in our family, and we wish you the best as you safe travel across America and then back home and into your vacation. So be well and thanks again, and say goodbye,
Yeah.
everybody, too.
I just want to say goodbye and thank you to everybody again. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I know his presentation went pretty long, but I just appreciate all of your interest so much. I really appreciate you guys tuning in because, as you heard me say, that's why I'm here. It's why I do it, is all of you appreciating the work. So thank you. And thank you. Special thanks to you, Aaron, for setting this up. So thank you to all you, and please do reach out to Aaron about anything you guys might be interested in, that any series you saw on the presentation, because I'm sure I can get whatever the right piece to you. So
That's great. Well, enjoy your weekend, everybody. Thanks for joining us a little long today, and hope to see you guys next week. Take care. Bye-bye, y'all.
Thank you. Bye.